Greetings. Welcome to Lansing Online News Radio. This is Bonnie Buckaroo, soon to be joined by my co-host Bill Castanier. You're listening to LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. Gee, Bill, we're going to have an exciting show tonight. I hope we have lots to talk about because we have yet to have seen either one of our two guests who are on their way.
I think there's a lockout.
Maybe that's it. We're seeing.
I did check the door. It's not locked.
We are seeing lockouts all over the place, though, aren't we, these days?
Yes, indeed.
I see even the New York Times writers walked out today.
Tough.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Yeah, interesting thing. Who's going to put the paper out?
Well, it does make you wonder, especially in an online era when that paper has to be fed all the time.
Yeah, you may see the same story up on the banner for a while.
I know, indeed. One of the things that we saw when there was the newspaper strike here in Detroit was that there were people willing to cross the lines and go in. Now, clearly, that doesn't happen immediately.
No, and it didn't happen in Detroit immediately. I wish I could remember the title, and I just heard about this book, this coming out. It's a book on the Detroit newspaper strike.
Oh, really?
And it'll be out this year yet. So I'll bring people up to date on that. I just heard that it's coming out, so I got to track it down.
I think the wounds are still there.
Deeply.
And I think the damage done has been lingering.
Absolutely. I mean, there are still people I know that were involved in that are bitter.
Yeah, very much so.
How long has it been?
Yeah.
A long time.
I saw the animosity toward Neil Shine, who had been probably the single most revered person in Michigan journalism. It continued for a long while, and there's still people who are very bitter about him and his willingness to go in and in essence, cross the lines.
Yeah. And it was played out very publicly because it was a newspaper.
Oh, absolutely.
And it got a little violent here and there.
It did. In fact, to say it bluntly, within Michigan State has been the inheritor of some wonderful journalists who have become instructors as a result of what happened with that strike, and it's kind of too bad because people never did go back.
No, only a handful really went back. How long? See, I have forgotten the details too, so I'm anxiously looking forward to that book.
I was doing a workshop many years ago on violence, reporting on violence. And I was talking about an incident where Bob Shear had talked about how he had stolen some high school yearbook pictures. He was interviewing somebody who had lost a child, and he asked them if he could have the pictures to take back and use in the newspaper, and the family said no. So he stole them. He tucked them under his shirt and jumped out a window with them. And he once talked about that as somehow that was what an enterprising journalist did. And I was saying at this workshop that fortunately that era had passed and we didn't do that kind of thing anymore. This was during the era of the strike, and I heard a woman in the back of the room began flailing and putting her hand up, and I called her and I said, "What is it?" And she said, "Oh, come on now." She said, "We all did things like that." And she started talking about, she was one of the people who had crossed the line and taken a job in Detroit. And she started talking about some of the things that she had done that were wildly unethical. And I kept thinking, my mind was racing, how can I handle this? Because I don't want to call her the name that comes to mind. I'm supposed to be a little bit more dignified than that up at the microphone. I didn't have to worry, you know why? Because the entire audience started to hiss. Everybody and they were all fellow, they just went, and she got the message real quickly that maybe she was old school. She really didn't understand that the world had changed and that wasn't considered good journalism.
That's the kind of thing that you see on television that a seedy detective
yes,
living in a trailer park pulls off.
Yeah,
a divorce case or something.
Yeah, the CD paparazzi.
Yeah.
Yes, no. That was not the kind of thing that made the industry proud.
Well, during that strike too, as I recall correctly, the Detroit Tigers were on a pennant run. And
that's right.
They couldn't cover the game. The entire season was not covered by Detroit newspapers.
The equivalent yesterday was when my husband was playing at the Detroit Zoo from noon to 2 and called me in the morning and said, "Make sure to DVR the game from me," right? And that's when I discovered we don't get the game.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up. I did not know either, and neither did my spouse, who was desperately looking for it at home.
Went through all 800 channels, one by one.
How? Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, apparently, can you get it online?
We pay for it.
Oh, you have to pay for it online.
Very protected. MLB,
okay.
Major League Baseball, is you can buy the entire season, any game, anytime.
I see. Online?
Yes, and it's very expensive.
Oh.
There are people that do it.
I have two friends who have sons that play in hockey, And they buy that expensive package to be able to see
Oh
it
yeah,
since
I
they
can
can only.
understand that. But I was really amazed that Lansing and a lot of other places in Michigan didn't get that aspect of the cable channels.
Yeah, some poor guy ended up listening to it on the radio outside the stadium in Detroit. He drove down there hoping, since he couldn't get it on TV, that maybe somehow he could get in. And
No, it wasn't happening.
no, it wasn't happening.
Yeah. Yesterday at the book show, the antiquarian book show, and I see you have the antiquarian book show T-shirt on.
Yes.
There was a crowd gathered around toward the end of the show,
Oh.
listening to it.
Yeah.
And on radio, it was like a throwback. I
It
thought it was
is.
1958 again.
Except there's nobody quite as exciting as Fidrich, I think.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I guess Cabrera is.
Oh, I don't know. They've got a reliever that's pretty weird.
Who's that?
My
husband talks about it, but I can't
what's
remember
his name? He's got the really odd nickname. He's not the guy that kissed the ball yesterday, though.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
Oh, their last reliever fielded a ball hit back to the mound, and before he threw it to first for the third out, he kissed it. Not good. It did not go over good with the Oakland A's. Yeah, they were very angry. It's pretty low class, but he probably had no clue. He's from the Dominican Republic, and
maybe that's a tradition there.
Yeah, some of those things are a little different there than they are here. There's a lot of unwritten rules that you don't show up someone else in baseball.
Well, actually, what will happen this evening, our second guest will be Angela Whitrock, who is maybe the world's greatest baseball fan in addition to being a reporter for MLive. So we'll be back to baseball.
She'll know everything.
Yeah, we can get all the details from her. But we are joined by Eric Schertzing, Ingham County Treasurer and head of the Ingham County Land Bank, with his monthly report and update on what's going on in the city. All of a sudden, things are looking good in the economy. At the national level, it seems like we've been getting some good news. Yes,
well, September was a good month for the land bank. We had 4 closings, bringing the year's total to 42.
Wow.
And, the neatest thing about the stuff, I don't remember what I might have talked about last time I was here, but, over 45% of those buyers are moving into Lansing. Folks from outside of Michigan, outside of the area, outside of Lansing, moving into the city. So that's always a positive sign to me.
Yeah, it is. It would be nice to see the population growing.
Well, that's how it slowly happens. Of course, we're taking down as many houses as we rehab, but it's part of the balance.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask about. Are we beginning to see any uptick in new home construction?
Well, that has been a piece of, in the city, what the land bank and the city have done, because we have a lot of vacant lots from where houses used to be, where they've been taken down. And so we've begun to refill those, building, 20 to 25 homes here in the last year. I don't think that the marketplace is doing that naturally. That's with the Recovery Act from the Obama administration dollars. But certainly housing is picking up throughout the region and throughout Michigan. It took us a long time to get into the pit we fell into, and it's going to take us a while to climb out.
Yeah. When I look at Detroit, there are streets which I have seen there where, you'll find 1 or 2 occupied homes, but city services still need to be extended. And that, when you reach that point, it's almost impossible to come up with a good solution. So part of the challenge then is taking down the homes and filling in the blanks, at least to a degree, as you go.
Well, and that's why I think it's so important that we've got buyers that are moving into town, because we really have state laws that encourage sprawl. And if you're a conservative, efficient taxpayer, sprawl is expensive. Those roads and sewers and all of that outgrowth is just very expensive. So the efficiency is in the urban environment, in the denser environment. So if we can encourage that, it's going to cost us less to provide government services going forward.
Yeah. William Kunstler talks a lot about how the rise in fuel prices, and we're now seeing $4.65 a gallon in California. I hope we're not shortly behind. I gather they have their own unique problems with refineries. But the reality is, I don't think we're going to see any great diminution in fuel prices. So the challenge is going to be, unless you want to fill up that tank for $50 to $100 each time.
Well, and I think probably the price of fuel has been a great contributor to those statistics I was citing. When you're selling $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 houses, those aren't households that generally can have 2 cars that you can depend upon. So the transit system of CATA and
Yeah.
Now they have that beautiful garage so that all of their buses get to spend the night inside so that they start out in the morning warm. That's just going to further encourage folks to be able to be in this transit-rich environment that we have in the city.
And I see those rickshaws around town too. I think those are kind of clever. I was hauling a whole bunch of camera gear. We've had Roman on the show here, and I must say that Roman and I hauled all my camera gear up to the 10th floor of City Hall, and he forgot about the interview, so that I had to haul it all back down. And I looked lovingly at the rickshaws that were going by, and I think that's kind of clever.
Eric, one of the things that I think it was last week, what happened is Scott Gillespie announced plans to back out of the development downtown. There really hasn't been much in the sense of large commercial development, has there?
No, it's been smaller. Scott recently completed that property that was like 11 units there on East Michigan that has the subway. So, but I think that's a transformational small scale, development beginning to extend the height of the avenue.
You took me exactly where I wanted to go because I see that as the place to develop.
Well,
if I had money, it would go on Michigan Avenue.
Yeah,
it would.
Yeah.
We were out looking at foreclosed houses. That's the reason I'm not dressed up today. And we were driving down Michigan Avenue, going between houses, and it struck me that the Gone Wired has renamed themselves Avenue Cafe.
Yes, the Avenue Cafe.
And then I'm driving down a little bit more, and I look up and I make a note of Gillespie's development, which is Avenue Flats.
Yes.
And I was talking to Mary Rutan, the executive director of the land bank. I think that's a pretty strong placemaking thing because it's no longer, you don't have to say Michigan Avenue in mid-Michigan anymore.
Right.
They're trying to take us to the point where it's the avenue.
And I think it's going to be the Ave.
Yeah.
If it really gets hip, it'll be the Ave. The place will be to be living on the Ave.
When I was a teenager in Jackson, we had an evening activity called Dragging the Ave, which was wasting a lot of gas in our parents' car, just driving back up and down Michigan Avenue in Jackson, waving at our friends. I mean, we do this for hours on end when gas was 25 cents a gallon. So
yeah, we did that a lot in Stockbridge.
Did you do it?
Oh, yeah, everywhere.
Yes, that's Michigan tradition.
Ours
A
was
fine Michigan tradition.
Pine Street, yeah.
Well, we had to go to Jackson or Lansing to really do it.
Wow, the big town. I see.
I think I counted once that I think somewhere in the range of 52 vacant lots on Michigan Avenue of various sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, if you could put 52 townhouses on those,
right,
it would be an interesting street.
You want
more
density. You want more height.
Yeah, I know you do. Because you'd only have 104 people probably then.
So that's just great stuff along there.
Although I was disappointed the other day, I went yesterday as I was leaving the Antiquarian Book Show. I stopped and took a picture of the place where I had talked to the two young entrepreneurs who had one of the dispensaries in a building on Michigan Avenue, Relief Choices, I think it was called. It was kind of amusing that day because they locked themselves out of their own building. They had such good security, and they had to call the security company to let them in. But that was a big drop, I assume, in revenue when a lot of those places went out all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, that was great for the landlords.
Yeah.
All the empty space filled
and
up all over
town. It was cool looking. If you want to call a place the Avenue, it looked like an avenue.
The community said there were some downsides. So we have to
the community has no sense of fun. I don't know what's wrong with them.
You have a youthful spirit.
Eric, do you think the Red Cedar golf course is going to pass? And that's going to be basically a vote on whether or not to extend the size of it.
Yeah, I certainly don't see anything organizing itself to oppose it, so I don't know why it wouldn't. They're talking about an awful lot of land now that they're gonna take up, and we'll see. Development in the floodplain is a lot more challenging than perhaps some folks are thinking by modern standards, and that comes out of conversations with Pat Gillespie, who bought from the land bank the old Silver Dollar site and is moving forward on redevelopment plans for that hopefully in the next 6 months or so will get financed and be able to break ground. But there's just a lot of considerations of water displacement and elevations. And so we'll see how well those development proposals have really been able to think that through after the election.
We've seen such a shortfall now that Mayor Bernero has announced this $11 million shortfall in the budget. Is that an indicator that the city is in trouble, or is it a budgeting issue? What's going on there?
Well, our cities are pressed. We're no Flint, but we're probably not as far behind as you might like to think.
Really?
The revenue is, still going down. Expenses going up faster than revenue when times were good. And that's just a tough position to be in. Hopefully, we'll start to see some taxable value growth, but it's not going to be this year, and it's probably not going to be next year.
It's too
I
bad.
was at a church book sale this morning, surprise,
Mhm.
and I was talking to some people I know there that run a food bank. It's a very large food bank, and this year is double over last year.
What church is this?
I
What
don't
city? What
Oh, it's
town?
Lansing.
Oh, Lansing.
Lansing,
Oh,
right
okay.
downtown. And,
Ah.
I'd say, but it's that's amazing, and they are having trouble feeding that many people.
And the tax foreclosures, mortgage foreclosures have been getting better for a number of years, and certainly in the city. The tax foreclosures were up another 10 or 15% this year, and I don't see anything that's going to change that next year. Hopefully, it won't get worse, but it's going to stay elevated. A number of those properties were occupied. To be able to run this process, we do a kind eviction process so that we can get those properties sold at auction and redeveloped. But through July, the guy said that they had done as many evictions in the area as all of last year. So those people that are hurting have maybe run out of, as would be true with the food bank numbers.
That's exactly what's happening. Probably that's certainly the people that are going for food bank probably to get resources.
My sister has been organizing and now launched the Blessings in a Backpack program out in Grand Ledge to supplement the school lunches during the week with a backpack program for the weekend. And 40% of the kids there are on assisted lunches, and you think of that as an affluent community. So a lot of times you don't realize as well. That's why I was wondering, out county.
Well, in East Lansing at Donnelly, I think we're over 50% or at 50% of subsidized lunches, and out county is the same. I mean, that's the highest percentage in East Lansing schools, but that's higher than anybody would think.
Yeah. This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. So do you have other things you want us to know that are on your list for your monthly update?
Those are the ones.
What are you keeping secret, Eric?
Well,
I have a list in my pocket.
I'm not very good at keeping things secret. Although I didn't come tonight with his rehearsed a list of stuff. There's a lot of good garden stuff, going on. The markets have really been gangbuster.
They have been.
This year, even with the drought, there's been a lot of production. In that Urbandale area in the summer, we added a hoop house. So they've started to harvest. The Lansing Urban Farm Project has started to harvest out of the hoop house, extending the season, extending the revenue to make it more sustainable.
Yeah.
There was a little orchard that was planted in the neighborhood a month or so ago.
Oh, was it?
With some of the kids. It's garlic planting season. That's been the kick that I've been on about this time of year. You want to be doing that. Where does over half of the garlic consumed in this country come from?
Who knows?
China.
We
It's
can grow
like a weed sometimes.
You can grow it right here in Lansing, Michigan.
An invasive species.
It's wonderful.
It's hard to imagine that they're putting that stuff on boats
and then you would still make money after shipping it that far. Yeah.
Some of the, I think that's true. I certainly read it from a credible source, but it's like you can grow 40,000 garlic bulbs on an acre of land.
And unfortunately, all of the dog treats at Myers, as I went over the packages carefully one by one today, are all from China.
Yeah,
We've had some problems with those, so you don't want to get any of those. Some concerns about the dog treats.
You could grow all the garlic you needed in the United States in downtown Detroit.
Well, they may be one of these days. The urban gardening takes off. Yeah.
And it's a good value added. It's 50 cents to $1 for a bulb. People are happy to pay that. It's, the stuff that I grew and harvested in my own garden this past summer is so much more vibrant and wetter and just richer than the stuff you get in the store.
Take a slow boat from China, so to speak.
Well, I knew that the world had changed and the foodies had taken over, though, when I was at Sam's Club last week, and they're now carrying quinoa. I mean, you wouldn't think that Sam's Club would be a purveyor of quinoa. I mean, it's interesting how much our food tastes have changed over the past decade or so. We've gone from being a sort of white Wonder Bread culture into being very much a diverse and international food culture.
Yeah, as we're seeing with the whole local food scene and the restaurants and the food trucks. There's even one at MSU
MSU
is
is doing
opening
a
one
food
up there
truck.
at Brody Complex.
I give Dr. John Greenbaum at MSU at the Student Organic Farm an awful lot of credit in this state for really spearheading the entire hoop house innovation here in mid-Michigan. I mean, it's just been extraordinary. He and Adam Montry have both been part of that movement. USDA backed it quite a bit. Some of the research came out of Pennsylvania, but Michigan has really been at the forefront of just saying we can grow food year round here. We're no longer just a one season summer crop state.
And you know, John's students have been one of the great resources that have made the Lansing Urban Farm, Urbandale, so powerful.
Yeah.
Living there, you know, working there, volunteering
Laura
there.
DeLinde did her
Yeah,
efforts
and
there.
Linda Anderson have just done tremendous stuff.
Do you think we're going to see a time when young people like that start their own urban gardening food business?
Well,
It
you
seems like
know,
we will.
we've got it starting. Floodplain Farms is another for-profit that Jared Talaga has started down in there, and there's others. If you drive around, you'll see their signs up, and that's a for-profit venture where they're trying to make money. Marcy Bishop Cates that has the Incubate facility in Delhi Township. You know, she's looking to expand. She got a little slow start, you know, as any new business, but it has just taken off gangbusters, and she's looking for more space. Allen Neighborhood Center is working on the food hub, which is going to be part of that growing. So that Kalamazoo corridor has really become a sustainability corridor of food production, food sales, the marketing. Of course, the bus route up and down there links campus to downtown. What a rich environment.
There's a small business that sprouted up, literally, I think, pun intended, out in San Francisco, where a company comes in and makes your backyard into an edible garden. So that you pay them a fee, and they come in and they set up a composting system for you. They put in bales of straw and so forth and set up all these little pods and places for you, a little mini garden in the back. And the arrangement that they have with the homeowner is that typically you have more food than the family consume.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't consume it all, they have a buyback program where they'll take it and sell it at the farmer's market for you. So they have an arrangement with the farmer's market. I think those kinds of innovations are just on the horizon for us to start making those kinds of changes. I'd love to see everybody with an edible backyard, you know, rather than have the Chemlon pesticides and so forth. It'd be much nicer to have everybody munching out of the backyard.
Do you think there'll be a chance when we'll have grapes in Detroit?
Wow, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure you have Concord grapes growing in some of the fence rows and hedgerows there.
Yeah.
We do here, so.
Yeah.
We're seeing some of the food truck people too evolve into restaurants. The Purple Carrot is now going to be opening, well, they have opened the Red Haven restaurant there at the corner of Hagedorn and Mount Hope. And we're seeing all sorts of changes. There's what is the gas station one in Old Town that's now selling some food?
Artie's?
Yeah,
Artie's,
yeah. I mean, we're seeing some real, I think, interesting things happening. Lots more places relying on local produce.
The coffee and cappuccinos at Artie's are just, I mean, there's such an artistic, there's birds and stuff worked into he does just a great job.
Yeah.
It's a cultural drink rather than a coffee drink. And he gets coffee from Grand Rapids.
Oh,
coffee
does he?
beans, yes. I forgot the name of it, but I've had it down there. It's really good. I don't know what they do that's different, but it is good.
Eric, what's your thoughts on the idea of this becoming, I mean, there's been this talk, the Richard Florida idea of, you know, cities have to become cool cities to be able to attract people. What do you think of that philosophy? Is Lansing on its way to transforming itself to having a lot more cool enclaves?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. What I have seen happen in the last 10 years and the vigor and the youth that are coming into the movement is just phenomenal. And that's true. I mean, you have to do that. That's why, I mean, price of gas, cool city, great houses. I mean, there's reasons you have to provide for people to move back into town.
Right.
You know, folks aren't going to just do it because.
Right.
So that's part of what we've been doing. That's a major push by, you know, state government, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, and all of the different entities are about placemaking and making every urban area a cool area.
For young professionals, also for young families, the next big thing you always have to tackle is the schools. That's the next challenge. You have to make sure that the schools are attractive. That's the one big challenge I think that urban centers still have.
Yeah, but you know how it's only 25% of households that have school-age children. You know, I mean, so that's an important issue. Absolutely, it defines the community, but I think it gets overemphasized.
Oh, really?
That's really a much smaller piece of your life.
Throwback to the 50s, 60s. when every family had children.
Yeah, even take an East
But
Lansing.
Lansing seems to be in some ways a very much an aging city where we would benefit from more young families.
Yeah.
Well, and we're getting them, but even take an East Lansing, we've got, about 2,500 resident student population today, and we're a little bit bigger city than we were 40 years ago. 40 years ago, there were 5,000 resident kids in East Lansing.
Wow.
I mean, the magnitude of these changes, even in vibrant, healthy, dynamic, growing, prosperous communities, is just profound. Then you think about, the Detroits, Pontiacs, Flints, much lesser Lansings, and it's your 50s throwback. I mean, there were just twice as many kids sitting in those neighborhoods in the good old days, and it's just not the reality today.
My family just got a head start on it because my dad was 4. He got married to avoid the draft and then found out he was 4. So that's the only reason I'm here to tell the tale.
I wasn't able to go to the Oktoberfest in Old Town because we were doing our things with our auction for the Historical Society. Somebody came by on Saturday that said on Friday night there were 2,000 people there.
Really?
That's a lot of people for a small festival.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And it was a little nippy.
It was real cold. And I think they had the similar kind of crowd on Saturday.
Oh, that's
colder,
great.
yeah.
Polish Muslims are a big draw. They're cool. They're really cool. Yeah.
So, I mean, those kind of events, look at just in 10 years, how much Old Town has really taken it to the next level.
Oh, I think that the number, I mean, you could be busy every night of the week and probably for something that is free or is so just wonderful stuff all over. Really good. Well, thank you, Eric, and we'll look forward to your monthly wrap-up again.
We will see you in November.
That sounds wonderful. After the election, we'll have plenty to talk about.
After the election.
Where housing's going to go.
Congratulations, yes, and good luck. Yes.
Thank you.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. And we are about to be joined by our next guest, and that would be Angela Whitrock of M Live.
She's not wearing anything tiger.
I don't know why not. I thought you'd have your hat on and a sweatshirt. And
my hat was appropriated by one of my young brothers, my baby brother, actually, after he wore it to Justin Verlander's first no-hitter. And
it's unlucky. It's a totem.
Yeah, so I can't have it back. And the rest of my Tigers gear is not professional enough for work.
Oh my gosh! Imagine that.
I know.
Unless you live in Detroit or work in Detroit, then it's okay.
Then it's fine. They probably have business suits they're made out of.
Well, we're trying to find out, where do you get to see the games?
We have cable.
Which cable?
ATT Uverse in East
They
Lansing.
carry that channel.
They carry
So we have MLB Network, which when I discovered that, I had the best husband in the world because he was totally all right with me being super excited to be able to watch as much baseball as I wanted.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get to watch any game.
Mm-hmm.
See, we have WOW, which was previously known as Broadstart, which was previously known as Cable Speed. It has had 50 names. It keeps changing names because they keep hoping people will do a Vulcan mind wave and forget how bad their service is.
But is that like the only option you have? Where
Zero.
You live?
They do not
Unless you
carry
get Dish.
MLB.
And I don't know if Dish carries MLB Network. They probably do. But I'm not positive. I know Comcast doesn't. We learned this weekend.
Right. So you couldn't watch the noon game yesterday, which was a bummer because it was a great game.
Listen to it on radio, old-fashioned style.
My husband came screaming in his van, right, because he wanted to watch the last few minutes of the game because he'd been playing in Detroit, and ran into the house, and he now missed the last few minutes of the game because it's not on. So
there would be unlikely as dramatic a game as that by a very unlikely player. The player that hit the sacrifice fly hits 186. He's played so infrequently this year. I didn't even know he was on the team.
He's barely on the team. I mean, he was designated for assignment, and he was in the minors most of the year. Yeah. But the interesting thing, I read somewhere, I think someone posted it on Facebook this morning, MLB Network, or I think MLB.com is offering a free trial right now where you can sign up for their at-bat streaming service, and you can watch the games live for free. So if you don't get these cable channels, you might try to sign up and stream the games through the internet.
Well, see, I have been begging Broadstripe now, for Current TV, Sundance Channel, Independent Movie Channel. It seems to me that the movie lost all of those. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how many times can I watch a shopping network?
That's why more people are streaming TV.
They are, and it's going to start happening more and more.
It's going to kill cable. Maybe laid the golden egg.
If you can stream, I mean, if you could buy a la carte packages for just the television stations you wanted and stream them through that would be excellent.
That would be excellent. That's
Yeah.
where I'm hoping it'll head. I've taken a look at some of the options online, and they're starting to look much better.
Well, I think I've told you, the cable package we buy because we want to watch Tiger baseball and Spartan basketball is 10 times more than we need. We don't watch anything else, but you have to buy these,
Right.
How they're packaged.
Right.
Well, of course they're packaged cleverly to be really expensive.
Bundled.
Yeah, they're bundled, all right. I feel like I've been bundled. Let's see, for 20 basketball games, it's probably $20 a game.
Well, I probably would have had a better crowd. It's now time to make that shift back to politics, since I know Angela as the Detroit Tigers' best and most loyal fan. I know this wounds her to have to do that, but you just wrote an article the other day, and we were just talking about it with Eric Schertzing about the upcoming shortfall here in Lansing.
In the TIFA fund. Or the overall.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The TIFA and
The budget, yes.
11 million?
11 million.
That's not chump change.
No, that's about 3 times the size of last year's deficit. Last year the deficit was around 4.2, 4.7, I believe.
Okay.
And this year it's already projected at 11. And that's including the money that's coming in from the millage. So this is going to be a real...
Why? I mean, what happened? It seems to me that are we in that much worse shape than last year, or were there revenue streams that have since dried up? Was there federal help that ultimately went away?
Well, the Mayor Bernero would say, and I think he's probably right on this, that the way that cities are funded, that mechanism is fundamentally broken. It's tied completely to property tax values or to property values. So you assess a certain percentage of what a homeowner should be paying on that, and that's going to be your revenue. It's sort of like having a performance-based paycheck.
Yeah.
If your paycheck was based on something that was sort of in some way completely arbitrary, it would be really hard to budget from year to year, and it would be really hard in these conditions. What's puzzling is how it became so much larger than it was last year.
Yeah.
And without, they're giving us sort of a broad picture of what's happening. They say property taxes have fallen again. They're projecting that they're going to fall at least until 2016 is the furthest out I've seen.
Whoa.
So that property taxes are going to be a problem forever.
Right.
Forever being at least the next
future.
Yes.
Forever in my life.
Yeah.
And that they're not likely to rise in any appreciable way. That certain things are going to get more and more expensive, which includes employee health care for current employees, and includes especially these sort of back-ended entitlements, employee retirement and retiree health care. So the city of Lansing has 2 separate retirement funds. They have the police and fire system and the employee retirement system. And those cover both the original beneficiary, the employee, and their spouse or life. So you add in the fact that these benefits have historically been pretty generous, especially in the public service sector, with police and firefighters. And, the problem then that for the longest time, the city was essentially making the minimum credit card payment on these 2 funds because that's what was recommended. Sort of a way you pay just a little bit for years and years and years so you can use what you normally would have funded it or other things.
Actually, that was the anti-regulation fervor in many ways that infected both the public and the private sector in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and until the passing of that ERISA law that changed the way in which pensions and retirement funds are funded. Companies had to keep a lot more of that money going into a fund that was protected. It might have slowed growth, but I think we would have all benefited from slower growth over the decades and more stability than to all of a sudden have the whole system collapse, which is what it appears we're close to.
Well, and it's a problem. It's an epidemic problem in every municipality in the country. I just finished reading for the second time the really wonderful Michael Lewis book, Boomerang, and city by city by city, it is terrifying what pension funds are, how much money they are beholden to in terms of what taxpayers are putting in. There's, you extrapolate out the numbers. There's this wonderful example of a bankrupt community in there, and the city manager says, you just keep going and going and going until one day in the future, I don't know how far off it is, but it will happen. He says, There will be one employee who runs the entire city, and his or her job will be to collect all the taxes and pay them out to all the retirees. So, that's pretty much the same situation I think Lansing is finding itself in. Now there are new actuaries recommending a new process for the city retirement funds. They say that the city needed to up its payments, and by quite a bit. Mayor Bernero announced last spring that the actuaries came back and said each fund needed to be increased by about $2 million annually. That's about double what they had been paying in to begin with.
So what you have is you have an increasing requirement for set-asides now for the upcoming retirees, as well as the larger cost than anticipated for the people who did retire, on top of slow growth.
And on top of the fact that more people are living longer and retiring earlier. So you might, incentivize some employees to retire early, but they're retiring at nearly, or in some very extreme cases, nearly as much as or more than their yearly salary.
That's what I've wondered about. With all the buyouts supposedly saving money, they often don't save that much and we've lost their labor.
Right. And it's a very complex problem.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you would like to encourage, younger employees to step into the ranks. On the other hand, you are still paying the costs, you're just paying them out of a different fund. So it's no longer directly the general fund paying for a police officer's salary. Now it is the general fund indirectly paying for that police officer's retirement salary.
We've seen it at Michigan State University that incoming faculty, the first thing that went was that they would cover both you and your spouse forever in retirement. And then incoming faculty were told, we'll do it for you, but not for the spouse. Now incoming faculty as of July last year are told, we don't cover anybody in retirement. And that's a drastic change. In fact, we're the first university in the Big Ten to do that, which I think in some ways risks putting us at a competitive disadvantage with other top universities. But maybe in such a tight job market, that doesn't matter as much as it might have once. What we're seeing is a sort of shift. And I think if you look at it in the macro level, if you look at it at the micro level, at the level of a city budget, it's one kind of question. If you look at it as a society that has elected to allow 1% of its population to earn 20% of the annual income, take it off the table, and to control 40% of the wealth and take it off the table, it's awfully hard to have a sustainable, healthy society for the balance of the people if so much of the money is simply absorbed by such a small percentage of people. The inequality, I think. I was watching Joseph Stiglitz talk over the weekend. He has his new book out, which I'm reading, The Price of Inequality, and he talks about how that inequality costs us in so many different ways. I mean, that money being out of circulation in communities where it used to be circulating in the community for all sorts of things. I mean, we once had a vibrant, I look at California as my bellwether, free tuition, wonderful parks, great schools. And then they passed Jarvis and said, let's not pay for any of this. We would rather have lower taxes, and that's going to make us all happy. We don't need all these services. Well, the problem is we still really do need services. I don't know how Lansing's going to provide them.
And that's a good question. What are they talking about as some of the solutions, the cuts?
I think Mayor Bernero has been very upfront about this. He said, we have been cutting the low-hanging fruit and we have been cutting the muscle. There's just not much left to cut. You wonder, how are you going to make up $11 million in one budget? I mean, this general fund budget is generally around $118, $120 million. I mean, that's not a lot of money when you think about the size of the deficit coming up against it. So you wonder.
We're talking about almost 10%.
And there's no new revenue to make until property taxes go up. Even if the council and the mayor elected to levy what's left in the millage, I think there's something like 0.5 mils left that they could levy. It's not enough. It won't raise enough to do anything. And in 5 years anyhow, they have to drop that back down due to the Headley override. So there's no way.
Was our Charles. Yeah.
So there's no way to make more money. There's no more, water to come out of the rock here.
In fact, Eric Schertzing was just talking about the fact that we're seeing an increase in people who are unable to pay their taxes and tax foreclosures. So you can't just keep asking for more and more tax money and expect that somehow by saying magically that figure will now be there, that it'll all be collected. It won't be collected.
That's correct. And I think, there's coming a sort of financial reckoning for a lot of communities. For years, as Michael Lewis points out, communities and individuals have racked up incredible amounts of debt. We put ourselves in a dark room with a pile of money, and what Americans wanted to do with it was to spend it on things and yet not pay for it. So we have, across the nation and in Lansing and every community, a lot of bills coming due.
You need to read more broadly than just Michael Lewis.
He's my obsession right now.
He ignores, to a great degree, because he is sort of a Wall Street guy himself, he ignores the fact that what we really did was export all of our manufacturing to Asia, so that then we became the consumers that would buy their products and prop up their prices. So what we have is this symbiotic relationship where they have now sweatshop labor, which unfortunately, as we're seeing with the people going on strike over there and rioting over there in the factories in China now, as they're experiencing a slowdown, that's all we were told we were good for, was to be consumers, because the relationship required that we purchased all the excess capacity that those Chinese factories needed to stay profitable. Otherwise, they would welch on our debt. So we had this relationship going. But once that engine starts to slow, everybody's in trouble.
Right, and we're at least not one half, probably a fourth of the number of GM employees in this community.
We got rid of all those high-paying jobs and exported them over there. But the agreement
we used to have a headquarters here for a major brand, Oldsmobile.
Right.
They were very hot. They're gone. I mean, it's not anything replaced it.
I've watched wave after wave after wave of financial institutions over the years send free credit card to people, urging them to get into debt. They made it very easy to go bankrupt. There were all sorts of financial pressures on people. It wasn't just that everybody was so greedy that they wanted things that they couldn't afford. You were sold merchandise that was so shoddy that it went bad in 6 months anyhow, so you had to keep replacing.
Well, and culturally in America, there is a history, and recent history, at least in my lifetime, of a little more financial irresponsibility, I think, compared to what, my grandparents or, in more conservative financial families, what they would allow.
Right. And it was all, the mass media played a remarkable role in hammering you into the fact that you could afford all of this.
Right. There was the boom that, everyone should own a home. Well, it depends if you can afford it, if it makes sense for your family, if it makes sense. But that's not what we were sold. We were sold everyone should own a home. So then you have people buying homes who maybe aren't in a position to buy homes, but, wouldn't you know it, someone with a subprime loan is ready to help you finance that. And, it's an incredible collusion and economic storm, but, wherever the blame lies,
we're stuck with 11.
This is what we've got.
So they're going to have police and fire.
I don't know. The police and fire are the largest portion of the city's budget. However, it's going to have, I think what it will come down to will be more employee concessions. In a worst case scenario, you see what could happen would be an emergency financial manager or a city declaring bankruptcy. So there's tremendous pressure, I think, on employee unions to make severe concessions now rather than, what could feasibly be imposed on them in those other situations.
The police union in Detroit yesterday organized a protest where officers at 3:30 in the afternoon handed out flyers to people coming into the city saying, "You're entering at your own risk. We've had so many people cut from our ranks. This is the most dangerous city in America. You're on your own because there aren't enough of us to cover the city." And I think while you can argue that that was a dramatic tactic on the part of the union before the election, I think there's a reality that when the police are willing to do that, whether it's a stunt or not, when they're willing to do that, I think it's an indicator of how bad things have become. And I think that's the challenge now, is to rethink our entire economic system, and we don't seem to be capable of it. We seem to be discussing in this election an awful lot of things about who looked more tired than somebody else at a debate, and we've had these into the weeds financial discussions.
Right.
I don't know if you were as frustrated as I was watching that debate last week, that we have cities collapsing, we have schools collapsing. We seem to have it's a very discouraging look around so many communities in the United States nowadays. I'm concerned about women's rights. I'm concerned about climate change. But the debate was on fairly obscure financial points where you really weren't getting much other than campaign spin anyhow. We have this upcoming election. Is there anything we can do? What should voters be looking at when they're making informed decisions on all these proposals on the ballot? Will any of this help our community?
I think that's a really tough question that ultimately, all of these ballot initiatives, they're huge. Their implications are huge. for some voters, I think it's going to be hard to trust enough to get into some of these when they saw the boondoggle that came out of the medical marijuana proposal. Things with good intentions that suddenly the legislature didn't really uphold their end of fine tuning. So you have, I think some people have questions about whether these can be implemented properly. I mean, implementation is.
I still think it was a big hit.
It was well, I think a lot of people voted for it for one reason and saw it implemented in a different way. And I think that's the challenge with any ballot initiative, really, is that no one wants to go on record as saying what it's going to actually do. Because when you give too many specifics, as you see with almost every candidate everywhere ever now, then you give somebody a way to attack you. And I think the same thing is happening now with these ballot initiatives. There's tremendous upside to some of them. I think it's hard not to, when someone sells you on, hundreds of thousands of new jobs in Michigan, it's hard not to want to vote for that. But on the other hand, it's also difficult, I think, for laymen who don't get every press release and
Isn't that the challenge, though? I mean, what will NY be doing? Will they be doing their own analysis of each one of the proposals?
Yes, we have week-long looks at each proposal. Okay. I think last week was the 2/3 tax proposal. There were live chats with pros, cons, and everybody who wanted to hop in on the debate. So each week between now and the election, you'll see a whole look. I think energy is coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Can I ask how many people participate in live chats?
I'm not sure.
It's hard to get people to do that.
It is hard, I think, right now because it's a new thing.
And it's still a ways away from the election.
Yeah. What we did see on Friday in the text-specific live chat was very heated and I would say pretty intense.
Was it?
And, I guess you like people to get involved. And I think that seeing so much passion on both sides of the debate is helpful. So I'm hopeful, at least, that as we, continue trying to engage our community in this way, that more people will hop in and, really just let it go.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want trolls, but you.
Correct. No, and I mean, we, thank goodness we have some pretty sophisticated ways and a huge team of people devoted to basically keeping trolls out.
Good.
If you're a troll, you're not coming back to the best of our capabilities, and they're very diligent about keeping those folks who don't have anything to contribute but, smarmy comments out.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan.
Angela, the point you made about each of these proposals has the possibility of big outcomes is something that, taken as a whole, we've had some pretty major ones, but not all in one place, one time. Right? I mean, unbelievable changes could take place.
And some would be really antithetical to each other.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
I don't know how you achieve a constitutional amendment to add that much green energy at the same time you're cutting all these taxes.
Right, and that's, I think it's the magnitude of this election, I think is really showcased by the number of ballot initiatives, state by state. I mean, it's obviously part of a concerted effort to get out the vote for certain communities and constituencies. And, more power to everyone who made that happen. It's difficult to get a ballot issue through and on the ballot. You saw that with the casino proposal.
Right.
There was a tremendous amount of money and work behind that, and it still didn't make it. What I think the fear is that voters will just simply become overwhelmed and shut down. I mean, it's going to be exhausting comparatively to vote this year, to read through everything on the ballot and check through every issue. It's harder this year to vote, I think.
This has large implications, too, for can we get everybody through the system, since we're one of the states that doesn't have much early voting. Mm-hmm. Other states have done a better job of taking the pressure off election day by allowing, Ohio's already voting. Colorado's already voting, I believe. When people have to read through a mound of ballot proposals and try to digest them on the spot, it's almost impossible. You need to prep in advance. Mm-hmm. I'm talking with my students, and they keep thinking they're going to walk into the ballot box and magically their answers will appear, and I don't think they're going to. I don't know what they're going to do.
Very confusing ballot.
It is very confusing. On top of which, I'm kind of concerned this year too that we have, I think the rise of the ballot proposals, as you're right, have a lot to do with left issues. But isn't there a sense on the part of a lot of people that the traditional electoral politics and legislatures just isn't working for them?
I think that is part of the reason that we are seeing more ballot issues is that, a lot of interest groups, and I use that not pejoratively.
Yeah.
A lot of groups who have specific interests in specific issues are seeing that it's increasingly more difficult to get those through the legislature.
Yeah.
Term limits probably play a part in that. You go through all this work and then a new session rolls over and there's, 30 new legislators.
Yeah.
In
No institutional memory.
well, and in
Yeah.
Michigan specifically, having as many lawmakers as we do in two separate chambers, with the Senate having sort of the upper hand always in the arm wrestling match, it's to get something huge and that reform oriented through without a top to bottom majority is incredibly difficult. And even then, you see with some of Governor Snyder's initiatives, he hasn't had a walk in the park on some of those issues.
No.
And he's top to bottom red. So,
he's on the radio in Detroit trying to drum up support for his views on
His
some of
bridge,
these ballots. Yeah,
for one
for his
thing.
bridge.
right. He couldn't get his bridge through.
No.
I mean, this is,
Which to me seemed like a slam dunk.
It did to me
These
too.
guys, boy, this is the best deal I've heard.
right, but it's a toxic political atmosphere, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think. You can probably have a slam dunk issue and someone will fight you on it for some arbitrary reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the ballots come in. If you can just circumvent the legislature.
There were very, very many reasons that they made putting a ballot proposal on hard. Because the idea was that that was not the best way to do legislation because it is so difficult. I'm tired of reading groups that talk about how they are the ones for clean energy. Well, everybody's for clean energy, only they're actually on the side you wouldn't expect them to be. I mean, these AstroTurf groups are really proliferating at a remarkable rate. The only people that seem to actually be really, that it's a boom for them are the media companies that are collecting all these ad dollars. I've just about had it with how predators are going to get our children, and I mean they've gone pretty far afield in some of the ads.
Right, and I think it's a challenge. Do you fact check ads before they come in? I don't know. I mean, you would have to fact check every ad for every company that's. I mean,
and you can't reject them on the basis of fact.
And you can't.
No. I mean, it's illegal because they're political ads. You could do it for any other kind of ad, but you can't do it for political ads.
Well, that would be something that maybe there should be some reforming of if it were the will of the people.
You can't do it because of the First Amendment.
First Amendment, freedom
well, then,
speech.
Yeah, we're pretty much screwed watching these things.
Yeah, we're going to spend the rest of our lives watching these. That was why the only hope was campaign finance reform to limit the time or of the campaigns or the amount of money that they spend. But needless to say, the two parties like it the way it is because it's continued to benefit them. I mean, they're the incumbents. They don't want to see the rise of any third-party alternatives.
Right.
And the media companies are very happy with it because it's very lucrative for them.
Especially this year.
Especially this year, they are all sold out. All this.
And they get to charge,
everywhere.
those third-party groups the highest rate they want.
They have to give a break to the actual campaigns, but those super PACs, they can gouge them.
Anything they want.
Oh yeah.
In some sense, I think if you're going to be able to circumvent traditional law by forming these super PACs, your reward might be that you have to pay more.
Well, true, yeah, oh, yeah. It's just that I'm not sure that anybody's benefiting from the system other than the bottom line of some of the media companies. And needless to say, as those of us who, as a journalist, it's not a bad thing that journalists might actually have some money coming into news organizations. But one of the questions that's really being raised too is whether any of that advertising anymore is effective. I see you with a heavy online presence at MLive, and I think we're going to see a lot of that advertising shift to online over the years.
I mean, we're hopeful that it happens with all advertising because that's sort of what we've bet the house on. We've decided that the future is in more digitally based media, and so we would like to bring our advertisers, to the digital landscape with us. That said, I think, the political climate is so easily adaptable. Every election cycle, especially every presidential election cycle, we see something that had never been even thought of before and is now so commonplace. You see no one was on Twitter in 2008, and now campaigns are being blown up on Twitter, or someone makes a misstep on Twitter and that's the end of their candidacy.
Yes.
So I think, advertising wise, I suspect we'll see that happen in the next couple of cycles where, there will just be things that we couldn't even imagine that will pop up on your computer or will somehow be targeted towards you. I'm not on the ad side, so I have no concept of what that could be, but I imagine that there are some people who are probably working very hard to figure it out so that they can be the first ones to benefit from it.
I think MLive is doing a good job of dealing with what I consider the new reality for journalism nowadays. There can never be enough reporters in any community to cover everything going on. But the old idea was that you would blanket the community with as many reporters as you could because you were the gatekeeper who had the definitive last word on the topic. You know, you went out and interviewed multiple sources and weighed everything carefully, and you know, it's not that kind of world anymore. It's reporting episodically what you have at the time, getting it out there, and you move from being the gatekeeper who speaks from on high to becoming the person who facilitates the conversation. You're not the final word. Sometimes people that are responding to the comment section on Twitter will say, "Well, no, I'm not sure that that's quite right. Here, like, take a look at this report," or "I was over there when that happened and I saw it this way." I mean, you're really much more now part of a dialogue rather than the monologue that the media used to be.
Well, I think that's hard for some folks to adjust to. I get, you know, on my, I get into debates with my friends who are staunch believers in the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism that, you know, they appreciated or in some sense felt more comfortable with that kind of on high journalism. And, you know, it's hard for them to understand that now we have the tools to see what people want to read. And when you send out a newspaper, you don't know who's reading what. You know that someone is buying the newspaper, and that's all you know. You have no feedback from that reader in terms of whether they're reading your city hall stories or your business stories. You know, we know, or the sports stories. We know all of those things instantaneously, and you know, it's our job to serve our readers, not our job to tell them what we think that they should be thinking about. You know, there's certainly a place for aggressive reporting and public interest reporting, but there's also, you know, it's also our duty to give our readers what they want. So blending that, I think, is where we're moving and where we've been successful.
But even in public affairs, it seems to me that you're engaging people in the conversation where it wasn't a conversation before. It was, we have the answers. We're going to tell you. I mean, this idea that somehow Walter Cronkite had the right to announce when it was time to start thinking about, in a new way, about the Vietnam War. When we look at the Arab Spring, that's not the way the world works anymore. People can communicate with each other and say, no, we're the ones who think it's time for change.
And we're on the ground watching it happen.
Right.
And that's one thing that I think MLive is really bringing to the fore is this idea that, you know, our reporters aren't, I mean, yes, we are in some ways authorities in the things that we cover, but we are not, we're not the last word always. And what we can do is amplify the voices of the people who we serve. And I think that's most important. You see it in the comments section. When people respond, we try to answer their questions. We try to find it out. We get more great feedback and great ideas for what we should be looking at from, you know, folks who drop by online or send us an email or, you know, or Twitter or Facebook. I mean, we have thousands of ways for our readers to interact with us, and we encourage it instead of saying, you know, that's okay, but we've got it handled. You know, we don't know everything. We can't. We're just people. And we really appreciate the fact that our readers are so invested in making sure that we know as much as they do.
Print reporters used to resent the advent of broadcast because the broadcasters were stars. You know, they might notice your byline occasionally in the newspaper, but they didn't think of you as a friend. They didn't know your face. But now in this online environment, it seems that you have both worlds, really, don't you? I mean, you have some of the anonymity of a print person, but you also have some of the broadcast approach where people know you now. I mean, you're out in the community much more. They see you at the meetings and so forth. So you have your own following of people who...
you know, got a lot of friends on Twitter who know my sports-related obsessions, my food-related obsessions. And, you know, in some sense, I think it's better this way. We have our emails and our phone numbers on everything that we, you know, quote unquote print. And there's a lot more accountability to our readers that way. If they're not happy, they have many opportunities to tell us what we're doing wrong in their estimation. And I think it's important to remove those barriers between, you know, journalists and the people they're covering, because, you know, we're all about accountability for our elected officials. And I think that we've also got to be accountable to our readers. And, you know, really opening up this stream is the best way to make it happen, I think.
With no paywall.
With no paywall.
I just thought I'd throw that in.
We are here. Information just wants to be free. We are Electronic Freedom Foundation people here to the max. We're so happy that your model lets everybody read what they need to know to be active and involved citizens.
And I should say too, you know, paywall or no paywall, there's a lot of good journalism in this town right now.
Yeah.
I read a lot of my counterparts, and I, watch a lot of my counterparts on television, and it's really a great time to see what everybody's doing. It's not, living in Lansing, we have a lot of viewpoints and a lot of great reporting going on. And
check out M Live. Thank you very much to Angela Whitrock. She'll be glued to her TV station tomorrow since she can get to see the game. This has been Lansing Online News Radio with Bonnie and Bill, LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. Perfect time, isn't it? Now, if I hit the right buttons. Michael Lewis is such a good writer.